Welcome to the Wisdom of Women show. Business is the most powerful, innovative force in the world. And with visionary women leaders at the helm, we can lead in both impact and profit. Today's world needs the wisdom of women in business. This is why we are here to help women grow. Are you already a successful visionary woman founder leading a high impact company? The Wisdom of Women show is designed just for you. We are a community of women founders, investors, and leaders who want to see you rise. Join us as we unlock opportunities and prosperity for women-led enterprises. The future of business is women. Are you ready? Welcome to the Wisdom of Women show. We are dedicated to empowering women founders to shatter barriers of growth in their businesses. Thank you for joining us today as we illuminate the path to unlocking opportunities and prosperity for women-led enterprises by amplifying the voice and wisdom of women. So today we have a very special guest for you. Today I have with me Kelley O'Keeffe. And Kelley is the founder of Empowered Engagement Consulting and creator of the Scale School. Kelley comes to us with 20 years of experience in sales. Kelley has sold, this is kind of a cool statistic. Kelley has sold over $100 million in sales before she turned 35. So she's a real deal. She built her career in global technology sales, studying each aspect of the revenue process, including lead generation, sales, account expansion, and renewals. All things those are nuts and bolts, right? We have to have those important things. And growing her career from making 100 phone calls per day, talk about lead generation, during the 2007 recession to leading a 300-person global sales and renewals team during the world's largest acquisition and simultaneous COVID pandemic. So she's been put in big roles by big companies. So using this wisdom, Kelley founded the Scale School, a platform supporting CEOs in business-to-business sales through training, coaching, and community. She also does fractional chief revenue officer work and consulting. But the program helps founders, and this is really what I want you to listen to here. This is so important for us all. Generate cash quickly, achieve product market fit faster, which is like the holy grail, right? Because when you have product market fit, everything you do in marketing and sales converts into sales, into revenue, into customers. And also, this helps you gain leverage for VC funding. All VCs, I always like to say, if you are able to get traction in sales, you will be fundable at some point. Right. So it's really important work she's doing. She has an MBA. She has a passion for working smarter. Kelley consults as a fractional chief revenue officer. She lives in Midtown Atlanta with her husband and lab mixed puppy. I love that. She's a volunteer at the local YMCA, serves on the University of Georgia's Women of UGA Alumni Committee. Welcome, Kelley.
Thank you, Coco. It is such a pleasure to be here with you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's so great too. I feel like we're both on the same page of helping women founders really just shatter the barriers to growth and get some good stuff out there in the world, create businesses that have scale and substance. So Kelley, I always like to start with the question of, a book. And, there's statistics around how many books out there on leadership and business, and like 90% of them are by men. And this is not because men know more, right? So we have to actively put out the voice of women and the wisdom of women in clear ways so that we can find it. So I always like to start with, what is one book written by a woman that has significantly influenced your life?
Well, let me tell you, the book that I have chosen is not a trendy book. It is not one of the proliferation of the pop psychology books on imposter syndrome. Specifically for women, we struggle with our own mindset,
Mm.
especially in revenue generation. And my book is the OG of imposter syndrome. So this book was written by a female psychologist. I'm talking decades ago. She was insanely ahead of her time, and it is so highly relevant. She studied and invented the concept of imposter syndrome. Her name is Dr. Pauline Rose Clance. She was a professor here in Georgia at Georgia State University.
Yes.
And which is not the reason I chose the book, but I love to highlight another female Georgia peach. But she really dives into not only what imposter syndrome was, but the reason it was so impactful for me.
Uh-huh.
But she takes you through why other people in other groups are experiencing their imposter syndrome. So it gets you out of your head and why you're not necessarily, as perfect as you want to be, right? But why other people might be feeling the same way. And when you can really broaden and truly understand that, that does something. She also gives you tools on how to overcome your own imposter syndrome. And they're very specific and tactical. And she also includes stories of real women who have done it. And so I love her perspective on setting boundaries with our own perfectionism and choosing when we implement our own perfectionism. So anyway, imposter syndrome, overcoming the fear that haunts your success by Dr. Pauline Rose Clance. Love it.
I love it. I will definitely pick this up, and hopefully everybody else will too. What did you say? Setting boundaries around your own perfectionism, right? Because we like to just say, well, I'm a perfectionist. This is just how I am.
Yes.
Right. But in fact, we're moldable, right? Hopefully we can all, see where the perfectionism is helping us and serving us and where it's not. So I love this as a book recommendation, and I can't wait to get a copy of it.
Great. Do it. I'll send you the link.
Thank you. Wonderful. And Kelley, tell us more about your company, Empowered Engagement. What led you to launching this business and Scale School, and what is your vision?
Absolutely. So, and thank you so much for having me on. I'm so excited to be here, Coco. I have just followed you online and just really I'm thrilled with the work that you do. And I feel like I'm just stars are aligning here. So anyway, my work, I'm a fractional chief revenue officer. So that means that I have a background in both sales and marketing. And so I look at the entire spectrum of when a lead potentially hears about you all the way through that customer journey, customer experience, retaining them, delighting them, getting them to be your biggest champion, referring folks to you. And I love to drive efficiency in that cycle. So I'm not talking about cutting things or taking things away. I'm talking about messaging that really resonates and converts, preventative measures to prevent customers from falling off, creating a system that really keeps customers in your funnel and loving you. And that's what I think after having the corporate experience in that and really I left corporate because I was on a fertility journey. I was pumped up of fertility drugs. And I think this is a safe space to kind of share that. I could not work global hours anymore. And so I had to redesign my life, right? And then, this is in the midst of COVID, and I started reading all of these astonishing rates of how females are just not getting funding and scaling our businesses is incredibly difficult. But coming from the sales world, I was particularly interested in how many females are leading their own, or making buying decisions in corporate. And, there's only less than, there's so little research done on this, but the stat I found was less than 20% of vice presidents of sales are female. And that's kind of across the board in the US. And that, I think the number is actually probably a little bit smaller, but, what that tells me is that we are not getting as much funding as we need to get. So we've got to build our own revenue projections and our own pathway to get there and hustle and sell ourselves. But we have not been in those buying positions, and we have not either had access or self-selected into leadership positions where we are actually selling at the executive level.
Mhm,
And so
mhm,
there's a huge gap there. And I thought, well, hell, I've done that.
mhm,
Let me
mhm.
package up all of that, 15, 20 years of experience before I forget it all, right? I've got brain
Right.
fog going into at 40 and all that. Let me package all that up into the Scale School, and that kind of became the course in the community, for specifically founder and CEO led sales. But I started getting requests of, oh crap, this is a lot, right? Can you
Yeah.
help
Yeah.
me?
Mhm,
And
mhm,
so that's really where the consulting was born of, let's set you up with a system to scale.
yeah.
Um, because we're only one person and we don't know what we don't know. So that's really how this whole endeavor was born.
I
Um,
love it. I love it because, I'm also, I share with you, Kelley, the notion that you can set up systems that ongoing can produce outcomes. And I love that you start with the CEO or the founder and you help them develop those. And then once you propagate that right into the organization, then it becomes a virtuous cycle, and you have the systems in place to continuously keep growing and retaining customers. And so I think that's super important. And I also think the corporate experience is so valuable. I started my career in corporate too, and I feel like there's if you don't get that experience, borrow it from someone like you,
mm,
because you learn things in the corporate environment that really like help you have good foundational ways, best practices for how to develop a scalable business. So it's like a big business. It's working, it's funded, it's doing its thing. Now let's take the pieces that make sense and put them into a smaller business and help it grow.
mm-hmm.
So I know you're passionate about helping CEOs attain and retain corporate clients to accelerate their business. So can you tell us more about this? Perhaps some examples.
Absolutely. So, when you're scaling to your first million, and by the way, building my own business while I'm doing this, it's like everything's kind of coming together, right? And it's just so invigorating. But when you're building your own business, say to like the first million, you're really focused on that product market fit, making sure that you can get those first 3 to 5 to 10 customers and make sure they are freaking delighted, right?
Mhm.
You're obsessed with that. But I think then we start to, maybe have shiny object syndrome or try out different vendors because we're just overwhelmed. We've got to get more leads in the door. We just think we need more leads, right? Which we
Yes.
do. But I would argue that really moving out of that product market fit stage past the $1 million mark, maybe a million to 10 million, is really an extension of that product market fit, because even though you're focused on your market fit, your market, what we miss is taking, instead of just getting more customers and trying to make them happy, which is as quickly as possible, which is what a lot of people think is scaling.
Yeah. Yes.
Sustainable scaling is really about listening to your customers. And I am talking repetitive feedback loop. You, as the CEO, have to be in there listening to your current happy customers. That is liquid gold, and it's free.
Mhm.
Those sound bites of what they are loving about you and what that's going to be your marketing voice
Mhm.
as you go to attract. And that's also going to be, you need to create, I call it really a design thinking system. If you haven't heard of design thinking, it's all about iterating. And so you're still in an extension of that product market fit, because what you're doing is you're no longer just trying to go get the customers and make sure you're updating the product to make them happy, but you're finding out what's unexpected, what are they saying in their own voice. And that's what I love, is there's a big difference between value communication and in product market fit. You're communicating the value of your product and the vision of your product.
Mhm.
But in the market fit between a million, 10 million specifically, it becomes much more about value perception.
Yes.
So it's not us communicating what's so great about our product. It's about what are our delighted customers, how do they perceive the value?
Mhm. Mhm.
And that is what 99% of CEOs miss. And so when they do eventually, that will help you speed up getting to the 10 million, right? If you can start
Absolutely.
communicating your messaging. But it'll also, when you go to hire, build out your sales team, go to market in a more scalable way, if you have that feedback loop established, and you can communicate your messaging in a way that is perceived, the value is perceived, and communicate that value perception that customers are telling you, that's a whole different ballgame. That's scalable. That is how you scale.
Well,
Uh,
absolutely. And there's so much to unpack in just what you said, because it's first, it's so often we think that what we need is more leads in the top of the funnel.
yes.
Right? We think, well, and that's your shiny object syndrome, right? Where you're like, well, I can invest in this marketing thing and I'm gonna pour it into a funnel that probably is leaking, probably doesn't fully
Yes.
understand the customer. The words that you're using aren't a perfect match. So now you're just pouring, and this is where people spend a lot of money in marketing and are terribly unsatisfied, right? And so what you're saying is, and I think this is so important, is like there's a difference between what you think your product does well and what your customer really identifies as their need,
Bingo.
right?
Bingo. And this is where women can thrive. We
Yes.
are wired going through this hormonal journey of my own. I know how much more empathetic and these listening skills and caring skills that we are wired hormonally to really have. We can leverage those, and this gives us a huge competitive advantage. When you walk into meeting with a venture capitalist or anyone that could potentially invest in your company as well, they might ask you, what is your cost to acquire a customer? CAC is the, trendy acronym. Or what is the lifetime value of your customers?
Yes.
What's that ratio? How efficient are you with attracting a lead? How expensive is it for you to attract a lead, convert them, and keep them?
Yes.
That's just like going to get your blood drawn or your blood pressure checked. That is your health metric for your business,
Mhm.
in terms of revenue generation. And that's what you're going to need to know. And having that feedback loop established and being maniacal about your value communication and your value perception that prospects are taking in and perceiving, that's your hack, if you will, or what you need to dial in my experience, to really be much more efficient with
Mhm.
that cost of customer acquisition and lifetime value, because that will help you attract and retain more customers.
Beautiful, beautiful. So I wonder, so we really are talking about a lot of sales here. And sometimes we hear the word sales and many of us start to shut down. Maybe we think of it as sort of slimy or just manipulative. And some of us try to avoid it. And yet, before we started this conversation on the podcast here today, Kelley, we were both like coming out of our skin talking about how important sales is. And so, how do we get to a place where we reframe and think of it differently so we feel good about it?
I love this. And if someone's listening and they are resonating with this, you are part of 99% of women I work with. Something about the word sales does not feel good. And I'll admit it, when I first went into sales, I did it out of necessity. I never envisioned myself as a salesperson.
Mhm, mhm.
And so I had to reframe it, I think, as like a method of survival. And I think that's what a lot of CEOs have to do. If you're struggling with really, okay, maybe you've gotten your first few customers through personal connections or a little, some outreach, and it's going well and you're doing good, but you've really got to put yourself out there now.
Yeah.
That's something that, we have to accept that sales is part of a CEO's job. That's just, you're going to have to do it. But B, let's not think about it as the word sales because it has such a stigma. The stigma sales means you're shoving something that someone doesn't need down their throat. And
Right.
that's just not ethical, right? And so I really love to come at it from a point of view of, you know, empathy. I
Mhm.
am trying to understand, you both empathy and imposter syndrome both play big roles here because you have to know if someone was dying of thirst in the desert, would you just walk by them if you had a bottle of water? Absolutely not, right? And so you're creating something that you're learning from your customers that they're getting significant value out of.
Mhm.
And one of the reasons I love this book I mentioned at the beginning of the show was, when we capture why customers need our solution and love our solution, and we actually write that down,
Yes.
it becomes a data point in our brain, right? We see it, we write it down. It says, I couldn't live without your solution. This solution's helped us drive 10 million in revenue. This solution. And you really start to collect these data points, and it's not your opinion that this is the best solution. It's fact, right? It becomes facts. And so when you start to believe and understand that this is the solution that can absolutely help people, then it becomes about building relationships and uncovering their problems. And people like to buy, not be sold to. So once they find out what you do and they understand the benefits that other people are getting out of the solution, they're going to buy. It's not even a sale.
Right.
So it's much more about building customer relationships and understanding their problems.
Right. They're true problems, really where, what they really truly need and how, how you can then be a place of support and solution to whatever their needs are. And so tell us now, on your website, it says that Scale School will help you get done in 6 months what would otherwise take you 18 or more by being authentic.
Hmm.
Tell us more about that, because I think this is important. I think that I believe purpose, having a purpose in your business, having, vision and values, drives profit, drives sales. And what you're saying here, this word authentic, I think is important part of it, right? Speak to that a little bit.
Yes,
Does this
yes.
help you go faster?
Absolutely. So, we're all looking to how do we get ahead? How do we scale quicker, faster? What I find is that many CEOs I'm working with, obviously, we have so many balls in the air, and it is so difficult for us to sit down and do sales ourselves, right? Or do some
Yeah.
outreach ourselves. And I think what a lot of people don't understand is we just want leads in the funnel, right? Well, there's two main ways to get leads in our funnel, and that is inbound and outbound. So, and you're smiling, Coco. I know you've had lots of experience with this, but inbound is really about, putting yourself out there, the marketing material, emails, all the ways that you will make yourself visible to prospects. And that's where you'll use the messaging that's proved to be, that value perception messaging that I talk about. But there's also outbound, and you cannot ignore outbound.
Yeah.
And what outbound is actually founder or CEO, or maybe you're a head salesperson, but you as a founder CEO need to be doing this as well, is reaching out to potential prospects, creating a prospect list, a short list of folks that you know are heavy hitters and logos that you need to land, and actually personally reaching out, following up with thoughtful, engaging messages, getting warm introductions into those folks, showing up where those folks are. And that takes a lot of time, effort, and energy. However, again, you have to accept that as your job.
Yeah.
And what happens is we are pulled in a million different directions, especially as women. And what I do is I help you focus.
Yeah.
I teach you what we're doing is we have live work sessions, blitzes, we call them, where, you can go through the course and understand the basics of, and really master what I've taken me 20 years to learn. You can do that in a quarter long or less if you prefer. And then what we do is we spend 3 months actually executing on that, and every Tuesday and Thursday, we are in a live playlist, high energy session for a power hour, and we're all the CEOs are sending out our messages together. And so your messages are gonna be much more authentic, and
Mhm.
they're going to be much more, better received because we focus on that value perception piece. Now, the other part of it is actually doing it. And when you have something on your calendar, you're doing it with other CEOs that you want to network with, it gets you there,
Yeah.
right? So that's what we focus on. And I find that many CEOs, it's easy to push off or reschedule, but this is something that we don't record, we don't reschedule it. Your butt needs to be there, and we're seeing results from it. And
Yeah.
so it's proved fruitful.
Well, what I love about this too is sometimes we talked earlier if about your recommendation, the book on imposter phenomenon of imposter syndrome. What is it?
Imposter phenomenon.
There you go.
Mhm.
And the need for perfection and what's so great about what you described and my own experience of trying to find messaging, trying to find what works. You
Uh-huh.
can't do it without trying it. Like you have to keep iterating. It's the design thinking you were talking about. You have to like the first time you do this outreach is probably not going to be the perfect message that's going to
Absolutely not.
close every sale, right? You're going to do it and go, oh, well, that did not work, and I survived, right? And then and then you're going to listen, right? And you're going to hear something from the person, whoever it is, and then it's going to help you. It's going to help you refine, and then you're going to get more and more comfortable. And it's that I always like to think of our lives as like the hamster wheel, right? And whatever a hamster wheel is producing our results right now. And if we want a different result, like more sales, then we have to like sort of step off the hamster wheel and try something a little different. And what you're suggesting here is that it's like going to the gym and and it's uncomfortable the first few times you do it, but you're going to do it in little increments, right? So that you can quickly discover, I can do this. I don't have to start with 100 push-ups. I can do two down on day one, and then I can get to five, and then I'll get to 10, right? So what you're helping,
Exactly.
right? You're building the muscle over time, and you're learning that you're really good at it at the same time.
Right. And think about, if you start from scratch or you start from Googling or using AI to kind of craft a message, it will take you 3 to 6 months to actually get effective messages that folks will actually respond to and say, "Yes, let's have a meeting." If you have, it took me 15, almost 20 years to craft messages to CEOs and decision makers that are highly converting and appropriately written. You're competing as a CEO, you're competing with vendors that have hired Kelley's of the world and other folks that have been doing this for 20 years. So if you could steal my messages, right, and make them your own, and we work with you on how do we put them in your voice with your
Yes.
solution. But just like a personal trainer, they will give you a workout, right? A celebrity workout, right? A professional workout that's going to help you hit your goals. You can take the messages that have been highly affected and refined by me for 20 years and start to put your own voice into them. How much further ahead would you be, right? And there's nothing like this on the market. I mean, there's no women teaching other women
Yeah.
how to do B2B sales at
Mhm.
this level. And I just think it's such a shame. And so that's why I said, well, I'll do it myself because we've got to, we're a team here. And so anyway, we give you all of that. I've recreated every tool that I've needed in my B2B sales career, put it in a toolbox. And it's worked marvelously. So we have a database as women. That's what I'm creating, right?
Yes.
Um,
Yes. I
yeah,
love that. And it gives it gives us all an opportunity to do this because, as you said, there's not a lot of places where women can learn about authentic sales and being, blending that authenticity with that rigor and that, measurement and, actually watching the funnel start to fill and become recurring. So I know one of the, so everybody needs to go to, what is it, scaleschool.co, thescaleschool.co and check it out. But one of the things that it says on there, I know an area you talk about positioning, lead generation, and messaging as kind of some of your big stuff. Can you kind of walk us through Positioning, and maybe where you can, give us a few examples so that we understand like good positioning or how you've helped someone, or illustrate an example of sort of like positioning that isn't really there to like, okay, here's an example of real positioning. And then what you did once you have positioning, then you have some lead generation, and then you have messaging. Maybe walk us through some of that.
Sure. So think of positioning. So positioning, lead gen, retention, all of that. So think of positioning as you're at the gym with a personal trainer and you're trying to get the right form, right? You're not going to build muscle if you aren't in the right form. You're actually just going to like break something, right? So
Yeah.
positioning is really setting the stage, and it's your first encounter or entree or exposure to your prospective customer. And so if you do not position yourself the right way, the chances of them being receptive are very little. So it's very important to position yourself in an effective way to attract prospective customers. The reason this is so important, and I like to spend a little time on this versus just, there's so many AI solutions out there right now and companies that are saying, we can get you a bazillion leads. They're probably not going to be qualified leads that actually turn into a deal. And so what you're going to be spending your time on is managing and having a ton of calls on your calendar that are people that this is not quite a right fit. Wouldn't you much rather have fewer meetings with people that are actually highly qualified that you're going to make a deal with? I mean, that's the object of the game, right? Is make that deal and keep that customer. So I like to work smarter, as you said. After so many years, you just get to the point where you're like, this is exhausting if I don't find a way to work smarter. And so that's
Right,
in the
right.
name of the game. So that's where positioning comes in. And a lot of people skip right over it. But that is your real hack here. And so if you can leverage, like in one example, a client of mine offers fractional personal assistant services. So this is light housework, errands, things like that. And she is looking, she's sold to consumers for a long time in the Atlanta market. And so individual, mostly women, have been using the services to run errands for them so that they can go to the office or whatever they need to do. And it's taken off like wildfire. It's amazing. But she liked to approach companies
Yeah.
with this solution. Okay. And so really get into their company benefits program and have this be something that can help more women stay in the workforce, go into the office when they need to. I mean, it's huge, right?
It actually is.
Yeah, I know. I think
Huge
it's
value
really,
proposition. Somebody can go
yeah.
to the grocery
So,
store. Somebody can go to the grocery store for me, right? And
right.
so
And, the great thing about it is, it's local folks in your neighborhood who, you can trust, the background checks. It's wonderful. I could go on for days. But, the value that she's communicating, right, is, this is going to save women time. It's going to save women time, save women time, save women time. Companies, if you position that, if this is going to save women time, that may be interesting
right,
to a decision maker at a company.
right, right.
Is that going to have them actually respond to you, book a meeting, like want to explore a mutual fit and have a discussion with you? Probably not,
Right.
because that positioning is geared toward is not applicable to them. The value that they need to perceive is, how much is this going to save me in my bottom line?
Yes.
Is this going to provide me a competitive advantage?
Yes.
How much more, productive are folks going to be as a result? So that's where, being a female, getting into the head of that business owner and understanding their particular problem, it could be an array of things. It could be 10 different things. You have to, if I were to reach out to a prospective B2B customer and say, and this is what we've done, we took from, saves women time to, this on average, we've measured this, allows your worker productivity to increase by 3.5 hours per week, almost an hour, 45 minutes extra each day. Workers are more productive based on data, surveys, things like that. Also, we have been able to measure recruitment efforts and how much more competitive the talent and the applicants are when they see that this is an employee benefit. And so
Oh,
those things are measurable, right? That's what I'm talking about when I talk about value perception, because the person receiving that message, they may be worried if they're in recruitment, they're probably worried about recruiting the most high caliber talent. And so in that particular situation, you got to know who you're reaching out to, what kind of value they need to perceive. And in that particular situation, if they're in recruitment, they
Yeah.
would probably perceive a message about being able to recruit more high caliber talent. That would be the appropriate positioning for them. So that's the example of positioning and value perception.
I love that. And, it makes me think about it because I think about I'm in healthcare, and our number one challenge is attracting and retaining nurses. Okay. It is the number one challenge. So if I have a way to keep my nurses at work delivering care and not having to go, well, they can't because they got to run this errand and their kid needs this, or their, dog needs that, or their whatever, then they're not going to go to work. So again, then it would of course lead you to the next piece. It's like lead generation. Well, who is the best companies for me to target given what my value is, right?
Yes, exactly. And a lot of this is where again, as the founder or business owner, you're so tied up in the social benefits this provides and who this helps that you have to get out of that. And that's the reason you have to do outreach, because you need to go be talking to the
Yeah.
Cocos of the world to
Yeah.
find out to figure out which industries this is gonna, if Coco in healthcare, this is lighting up and you're sharing with me nurses, this is your business problem and this is the pain point, is getting more nurses into their shifts. Well, then that allows me, I'm going to go after the nursing organizations, that,
Ding, ding, ding. Yeah. Right.
but I wouldn't have probably arrived at that as quickly if I didn't do that outbound outreach and have those conversations with prospective customers myself. And so putting off those outbound conversations, those outbound engagements and messages is only going to slow you down in terms of who you need to target for leads and what types of industries. So we've actually found that law firms are
Oh,
super highly interested, right? I wouldn't
well,
have
and
necessarily thought
that's
that, but you just got to get out there and start getting meetings with everyone. And then you
yeah.
figure out which industries share their business problems with you.
Well, yeah, and it makes me think, and again, all of you think about positioning, right? This is positioning, and then who do I target for lead generation, right? And then what's my message? It makes me think about for this company too. My husband's in banking. There's the legal. There's like no women at the top. You go to these events, and it's like you see rooms and rooms and rooms of men.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, where would those companies be, right? So I'm saying this for all of our listeners to sort of, where could you create that kind of big market, a huge, huge, huge need. And then rather than going to schools, say, or something else, like you can become really specific about who you're approaching. And because of there's a huge problem with legal, right? We know this,
Yeah.
and we know this with banking too. It's where the women just disappear. They get to a point and then they're out because
Yep.
for all kinds of reasons, but one of them
Mm-hmm.
being that it's just too hard to get everything done that's expected of the role if you also have responsibilities beyond what's just there. So,
Mm-hmm.
so tell us now a little bit about messaging. We've
Okay.
talked about it, but let's talk about messaging. And I know this is important to you, and how really to home in on what the messages are that really resonate with your market.
Absolutely. So, and I think, when you're going to, past the $1 million mark, maybe
Yeah.
you're, in that sort of range where you're really looking to, even if you're, past the 10 million mark, this is where you can get even more granular with it, is one size fits all messaging. I'm talking email marketing, ads, like any verbal communication that you are putting out there, right? Any written verbal communication that you're putting out there to describe your company. You want to use terms and words that your delighted customers are using, because we are in this every single day, Coco. So we are founders, we're living and breathing this, we're experts in the industry by now. And so we're using industry terminology, whereas
Yes.
our customers are bogged down with a whole other slew of things, and they don't use the right terminology, and they don't care to, right? Because
Yeah,
they don't want to be experts. So that's why another reason you really want to understand from your current customers what kind of terminology they're using to describe the benefits of your service. So that's one. The second thing is, as you're growing, you want to hone in on, you want to kind of subcategorize your industry. So, um, basically, let's start categorizing who we're reaching out to. So is it legal, legal organizations? Is it, recruitment managers, recruiting companies? Is it healthcare, folks making decisions on hospital benefits, things like that. And that's where you'll, tweak your messages based on those different industries. And so once you hit the point where you're focused on that market fit and really scaling to bigger, broader audiences, you do want to divide that messaging up into categories to be much more effective. And that's how you're going to scale. So when you hire folks in, they can kind of specialize in those different, selling to those different industries.
I love it. So,
Mhm.
Kelley, what would be one last message of wisdom that you would like to impart to our listeners? So, like one thing you feel like you want to see results, you want to see a burst in new results over the next 6 months. What would you say?
I would absolutely start your outbound outreach this very moment, yesterday. I don't care if it is terrible. Start with folks that you think would never buy. Just start sending messages and knock that rust off. Obviously you can come join the scale school and we'll put you through a program to do this. But if you're doing it on your own, start reaching out just in the spirit of not selling anything, but
Yeah.
hey, I'd like to learn about your company and figure out if there could be some kind of collaboration or mutual fit. I'll take you to lunch, I'll bring you coffee, I 20 minutes. I'm doing market research.
Mm,
Essentially, you don't have to approach them about buying anything, but can I pick your brain about your business and your current challenges? Because I'm really putting together messaging for my startup,
I
uh,
love that.
my business. So
That's a
yeah,
great, that's a really simple and very powerful takeaway, right? So everybody's going to decide they're going to get out there and do more outbound. And even if it's just having a lunch, having a coffee, doing
Mhm.
market research, getting in that habit, and then so you offer a free status strategy session. Can you say more about that? What that is?
Absolutely. So if you are running a business and this sounds like I could potentially help you, go to thescaleschool.co, register for a free 30-minute session with me. And what we will do is I will ask you some questions about your lead gen, your business, what trouble you're having in terms of your revenue challenges. And we will start to put together a quick high level strategy, some tactical things that you can get started doing right now. And
Mhm.
then we'll discover, if it is appropriate. And if you do have a desire to learn more about the scale school or empowered engagement, you can ask me questions about that as well. And we'll figure out if it's a fit. But let's really have you come out of this session with some hard, concrete next steps for you to make a tangible impact to reach the next level in your business.
I love that. So everybody, once again, you go to the thescaleschool.co, and right there, you're going to be able to book a 30-minute appointment. It's very simple to do it. And check out the Scale School itself. It's cool. It's clear. There's a place where you see what all the modules are about. There's different modules, and it's an interactive hybrid kind of experience that if you do the Scale School versus work Kelley one-on-one. But I feel like you'll get a real sense of what her method is and her thinking, and it's deep, folks. It's deep. There's a place on there where you can look and see what the curriculum is, and it's a beautiful one pager that really lays it all out, and you can just feel the value, right? You can see how in 3 months you could really be able to alter the whole course of your company by generating new systems of sales. So I'm so excited that we got to do this, Kelley. And I think
Me
you're just a gem. And I
too.
think that your work is so important and the experience you bring, especially to founders who haven't had all this corporate experience and, foundational best practices. Like you just don't know what bigger companies that are bigger than yours are doing. And
Right.
so, like, if you want to grow into that $20 million company, what are the $20 million companies doing? What are the 100 million, the 50, 150, $200 billion companies? What are they doing that creates this system of being able to scale? So Kelley can be a great opportunity for you to learn and start to implement those systems. And so, Kelley, thank you for joining us today on the Wisdom of Wisdom show. Thank you for illuminating the path to unlocking opportunities for growth and prosperity for women-led enterprises. We value your experience and your wisdom, and the world is made better by women-led business. So let's all go make the world a better place. Thank
Thank you, Coco. This was a delight. Thank you
you.
so much. Thank you to the listeners. I appreciate it.
Yay. Have a good one.
You too.
Is your business ready to accelerate? Take the Business Acceleration Readiness Assessment today and find out now at www.aforceforgood.biz/quiz. Take the 5-minute assessment and you will receive an instant response on the 4 essential areas of alignment needed for business growth. You will also receive 4 free tools specific to your situation to help you and your team accelerate success right away. Go to www.aforceforgood.biz/quiz and find out what you can do to accelerate, impact, scale, and profit today.